Hello and welcome to IM Movies. The movie begins with a white car driving through the city. The white car follows a black car closely and eventually crashes into it in a lonely area. Both drivers get down, and the black car owner takes pictures of the accident to claim insurance. However, the driver of the white car is a killer, and he stabs him several times, drags him into the black car's back seats, and kills him. Later that day, two cops are stuck in traffic and they listen to a news report about the murder. One of the cops, Tae-seok, exits the car and goes to a nearby casino. The casino's security tries to bribe him, and one of them puts some money in his pocket. Tae-seok feels insulted and beats them up. Meanwhile, the owner of the casino, Dong-soo, is practicing boxing in a room. One of his men informs him that a cop was seen in his casino. Dong-soo orders them to bring down his punching bag, revealing a bloodied and beaten-up man inside the punching bag. Meanwhile, Tae-seok is already in the casino, and he arrests a guy for the illegal exchange of money. Soon, Dong-soo leaves the building and gets into his car with his gang member. While in the car, Dong-soo calls Tae-seok's boss to complain about Tae-seok's behavior and asks him to take care of it, since he was on his payroll. As Tae-seok takes his prisoner out of the building, his boss calls him, but he only answers it for a while and hangs up. Tae-seok makes the guy take him to the crime scene on a bike. When they get there, Tae-seok handcuffs him on the bike and walks toward the crime scene. Tae-seok examines the crime scene and notices that the deceased car must have been bumped into from behind. Soon, Dong-soo pays a visit to Sang-do, another gangster. They discuss the importance of respecting each other's territories and fulfilling their duties. The conversation escalates into a heated argument, and their bodyguards join in. Dong-soo angrily gets up and punches his own bodyguard before forcefully pulling out two teeth from Sang-do's bodyguard with his bare hands and warning them not to speak when the bosses are talking. He puts the teeth in a glass cup, adds wine, and asks Sang-do to drink it. At the police station, the police review the report on the murder victim and discuss ways to find the killer. Tae-seok informs them about two other similar murder cases and tries to connect each of them, telling them that a serial killer was on the loose. But the other murder cases were in another jurisdiction, so Tae-seok's boss tells him not to interfere with other jurisdictions' cases. He tries to convince his boss, but his boss only thinks he's desperate for a promotion. Later that night, Dong-soo drives home alone. On his way, he gets hit by the same car. Dong-soo checks the damage done and the killer apologizes to him. Dong-soo tells him it's fine and turns to leave, but the killer stabs him. Dong-soo tries to defend himself as the serial killer stabs him several times. Dong-soo manages to stab the killer in the chest before he drives away, hitting Dong-soo. Dong-soo is rushed to the hospital as doctors and nurses struggle to save him. Meanwhile, Dong-soo's gang attacks Sang-do, thinking he was responsible for the attack, but he escapes. Later that night, the killer stitches himself up in his car using a stapler and then goes to a dog sanctuary to kill his next victim. After a while, Dong-soo finally wakes up from a coma in the hospital. Dong-soo tells his bodyguard that it wasn't Sang-do's doing, but he insists. Dong-soo writes the plate number of the killer's car on a piece of paper and hands it over to his bodyguard to investigate. Soon, Tae-seok visits Dong-soo and mocks him for not being able to protect himself as a gangster. Tae-seok asks him for details of the attack, but Dong-soo tells him that he tripped and hurt himself. Tae-seok leaves the hospital and drives to the parking area to look for Dong-soo's car. He finds it and notices the same scratch from previous crime scenes. Later, Sang-do visits Dong-soo in the hospital and tells him about the damage his boys had done. Sang-do asks for compensation and Dong-soo agrees to give him. At the police station, Tae-seok tries to convince his boss to assign him two men to work with him on the case. He tells him about Dong-soo's attack and how it will help them solve the case, but his boss kicks him out. Meanwhile that night, the killer attacks his next victim, a truck driver, and steals his truck. On his way, a man wakes up from the back of the truck and the killer kills him violently, but he loses his knife during the struggle. At the same time, Dong-soo describes the face of his attacker to an artist to sketch. Dong-soo hands the sketch to his bodyguard and tells him to find the killer before the police do. The next day, Tae-seok and some policemen invade Dong-soo's casino. Tae-seok demands to see Dong-soo and they take him to him. Tae-seok threatens to expose Dong-soo's casino game manipulations if he doesn't give him information on the killer. Later, Dongsu's bodyguard tells him that they found the killer's car and hands him the knife they found in the same area. Dongsu hands it back to him and asks him to keep it. Dongsu calls Tae-seok and informs him about the killer's car, but didn't tell him about the knife. They both meet and make a deal to share information to get the killer, but whoever catches him first will do justice as he wills. Tae-seok begins investigating the case. He tells his men about the killer's tactics. Meanwhile, Dongsu instructs his men to support the police with info on the killer with plans to cut them off once it becomes successful. Tae-seok takes his men to search the killer's car for any form of DNA. He also tells his men of his plan to arrest the gangsters after the investigation is over. Later, Dongsu sends one of his gangsters to kill Sang-do using the killer's knife. Meanwhile, Seo-jin, a forensic expert, is jogging on the street, and Tae-seok tries to surprise her, but she quickly takes him down. Later, he hands her the DNA samples found in the car and asks her to help him test the samples. The next day, police are investigating the scene of Sang-do's murder, and shortly after, the police district chief blasts the police department for their incompetence and commands them to get to work immediately. After the meeting, Tae-seok receives a call from Seo-jin, and she tells him that the DNA of all the former murder victims was found on the samples of Sang-do's murder weapon, meaning one person did it all. Tae-seok drops the call and drives off to meet Dongsu. On getting there, Tae-seok hits him in the face and asks him if he was responsible for Sang-do's death. Dongsu admits killing Sang-do, and Tae-seok blames himself for trusting a gangster. But Dongsu tells him that their deal still stands. Tae-seok threatens to investigate Dongsu after everything is over. The next day, several news agencies give reports on the case of a serial killer on the loose. The case is handed over to the murder unit, and the Tae-seok's department is not happy about it. The news of the DNA samples found on Sang-do's murder weapon gets to the killer, and he's furious about it. The killer decides to attend Sang-do's funeral. As they were eating, Dongsu notices the killer watching him. Meanwhile, his phone rings, and he receives it, and by the time he was done, he was gone. Soon, the killer approaches Sang-do's bodyguard and hands him a paper that says, "Sang-do was killed with my knife by someone else." That night, the killer trails another victim, kills him, and steals his car. Meanwhile, Tae-seok and Sang-do both search the killer's car for more clues. As they were about to retrieve a valuable sample from the steering wheel, Sang-do's men attack them, and a huge fight breaks out. However, they manage to kick the gang's ass, killing Sang-do's bodyguard. But they are also badly injured. The next day at the station, Tae-seok sleeps on duty, and his boss wakes him. He sees the bruises on Tae-seok's face and asks what he has been up to. Tae-seok rebels and tries to walk away, but his boss gives him a file for a kidnap case. Tae-seok tells him he's not interested, but later accepts it. As Tae-seok and his team begins to work on the kidnapping case, they ask him about his scars and what went down with Dongsu. Later, the kidnapper demands money, and they listen over the phone as the wife of the victim receives the call. Later, they watch her from hidden locations as she takes the ransom to a local restaurant. She drops the ransom with the owner of the restaurant and looks in Tae-seok's direction. Tae-seok knows their cover has been blown. Luckily, he sees the kidnapper watching them too. Tae-seok quickly runs after him, and they all give the kidnapper a hot chase. Unfortunately, they lose him, and they all return to the restaurant to question the owner. She tells them that the kidnapper only ate at her place and had a bottle of soju. They decide to find DNA prints on the soju bottle, but sadly, they'll have to search the entire store for it. During the investigation, Tae-seok asks Seo-jin about the samples from the steering wheel, and she tells him it will be ready soon. The next day, Seo-jin brings the result of the DNA samples to Tae-seok. It happens to be that of a missing person. Later, Tae-seok visits the resident of the missing person, but his landlady says he's not been home for months. Tae-seok searches his room and found a photo of him that looks similar to the sketch of the killer. He quickly requests the recordings they got from the kidnapper's voice and sends them to Dongsu for recognition. They found the killer. Soon, Dongsu's men receive instruction on the killer and the area he currently operates from. They gather the whole gang, give them a photo of the killer, and send them out to find him. After so many efforts, they couldn't find him. The men feel exhausted, so they decide to take a break. Dongsu waits for Tae-seok at the bus stop while it's raining. A nearby female student is also waiting for the bus. Dong-soo offers her his umbrella to shield her from the rain until the bus arrives. Later, the whole gang and Tae-seok's team are having dinner. Then they see a news broadcast that the girl Dong-soo had given his umbrella has been murdered. Dong-soo gets angry, and they all rush out to look for the killer. They found his apartment, but he was not there, so they patiently lay wait for him in every corner and car. Later, he arrives in a car, and noticing the gang's presence, he drives off, and they give him a hot car chase. As the chase continues, Dong-soo and Tae-seok crash into the killer's car. As they recover from the crash, they see the killer running away, and they chase him through town. At some point, they had to split into three: Dong-soo, Tae-seok, and Dong-soo's bodyguard. Soon, Dong-soo's bodyguard has been attacked by the killer and kills him. Dong-soo and Tae-seok both hear his scream, and they run in the direction of the scream. Dong-soo gets there first to find his bodyguard bleeding as he points in the direction the killer went. The direction leads to a nearby motel, and Dong-soo searches every room. Soon, he finds out he's hiding in the toilet of a room. Dong-soo crashes the door of the toilet on the killer and punches him in the face fiercely before dragging him out. Dong-soo drives the killer to an unknown location, ties him to a chair, and beats him up. Meanwhile, Tae-seok quickly tries to find Dong-soo. He traces his phone and finds out he has taken the killer to an abandoned building. Dong-soo is about to execute the killer, but Tae-seok crashes into the building and knocks him out. Tae-seok takes the killer away and hands him over at the station. The next day, news reporters swam to the hospital where the killer has been treated for his injuries. Meanwhile, Dong-soo watches the news and sees that he's now a wanted man being investigated by the police for his fraudulent gaming operations. Later, Tae-seok interrogates the killer and loses his temper as the killer shows no remorse. During the court hearing, the killer's lawyer claims there is no evidence linking the killer to the murders. However, Tae-seok had convinced Dong-soo to turn himself in and testify against the killer, offering him the opportunity to pin Sang-do's death on the killer. Dong-soo appears in court when all hope was almost lost and testifies against the killer using the stab wounds he got from his attack, as well as the one he inflicted on the killer as evidence. As the police undress the killer, they find it all to be true. The judge gives the killer a death sentence, and the police arrest Dong-soo on the spot. On the 61st Police Appreciation Day, Tae-seok and his team get recognition for their good work. Meanwhile, Dong-soo is taken to the same prison where his gang members and the killer are locked up. It was part of the deal Dong-soo had cut. As soon as the killer sees him, he stares in shock. Later, Dong-soo confronts the killer in the bathroom with a rope in his hands, and the movie ends. The alliance between the gangster and the cop was born out of vengeance, which transformed into a powerful force for justice, leaving a lasting mark on their lives and the lives of those they have sworn to protect. And that's the end of this recap.